They also didn't search us often when we went into the lab, but we wanted to leave something behind instead of have it gobbled up, and if it ended up being our last visit as well. We knew we couldn't get into each other's nooks across the hallway without going nuts, so that's what we did. I guess they didn't search us often because they knew by now we didn't have any weapons, or we would have probably tried to organize some kind of attack against them. They must have also figured we didn't have anything in our nook areas, or we would have either tried to do ourselves in, or they thought we didn't believe in it. Either that, or if we were mad enough, we'd take our own base to a wall or something anyway, who knows. But whether through the duration of our stay or through negligence, they seemed to have stopped searching us in all of our areas. Despite that, we still kept our processes anyway, if only to keep our stuff passed on to each other, because once something was gone, all the personal effects got trashed and burned so they could start with a clean slate for the next one. It was sort of a control, I guess, so everyone started from the same spot. I think that hardly matters, though, because I think as easily gatherable resources are dwindling on the outside, the people they are capturing that would be willing for this horror torture probably aren't that healthy. Chapter 4. Sing to Sleep. Day 1. Double XL crawled over to his mat on the floor. Guess he decided it was a good time to try to take a nap. We could get maybe 30 minutes or so before the type of sleep set in that picked up terror, so maybe 2 hours max. We rotated sleep so we could try to wake each other up if it got too bad. Each of us responded to being woken up in a different way, and sometimes I could sing to Double XL to get him to wake up and be okay. Not any music he would like when he was awake, of course, but music I used to sing to children when they would have night terrors when I was a kid. For some reason, I'd always imagined that's why the music was written, because it didn't seem to have any other purpose. One night a kid was having night terrors in my house. It would wake me up all the way from the other end of the house, and everyone else slept through it or kept playing video games. I sat by the bed next to him and began singing some of the slower songs from 7 centimeter Spikes, an industrial band big in the 90s, but they had some good slow songs too. The child would maybe still suffer for a minute or two, but then he would restfully return to his seemingly peaceful slumber. I wanted to believe that I was helping him. He would sometimes slip back into nightmares, and I'd be there again for him. I was in the house with so many people, and nobody even cared, but these were the things I did. He'll never know, but that's fine at 5 years old. He had suffered more than most people will in their entire lives, and my only regret was that I couldn't have done more. So when I noticed Double XL doing the same thing, I immediately picked up the role again. XPX never said anything about it, and I doubt he ever even looked up. I think it got his respect, though, because before that, he never even talked to me. And it was soon after that Double XL was actually able to start talking and started bonking on the cupboard to wake me up from my crappy dreams. There's more people here, of course, but it's impossible to see the adjacent cubbies from where we're at. We get things tossed in from people getting dragged out to the lab every once in a while, but without context, it's impossible to put a story together. Eventually they don't come back, and out to the harbor seals they go. All we have on the objects is their codes, all starting with a letter X and 2 letters or numbers. That's right, don't give those bastards the pleasure of having a name to attach to us. So far, a wing of the hospital or prison or mental hospital or whatever the hell this island is has been constantly all males, our ages ranging from about 25 and up, and nobody over 45. I'd never recognized anybody, but the Pacific Northwest was a pretty big area. There were rumors of women and children here, but I hadn't seen any. Chapter 5, The Supply Boat Schedule, Day 1. There wasn't much to do between getting labbed every couple hours and dealing with the sleep situation. The place was fully blanketed in video surveillance, so even if I could somehow deal with the dread in the hallway, they would know it. Because of this, I had to stay away from the halls anyway. I tried to listen and pay attention to when the boat came to the dock for supplies. It didn't have patrol boats with it, but was moderately armed. It had nobody active at the .30 caliber that it had mounted on a tripod at the bow of the ship. I guess they had nothing to actively be concerned about anywhere near the harbor anymore. As I watched the boat dock and heard seagulls heralding its arrival, I reminded the routine to myself. The supply boat came once every other day, and it could be seen from our wing. No real security came out to greet it, only some orderlies in their black light-absorbent uniforms. The people on the boat only got off the boat for a moment to personally hand off any new volunteers for the experiments on the island. After that, they would sign and get the signed paperwork verifying that they were there on time, and then they would get right back on the ship. I don't think they liked this place at all. The island had a medium-sized train drone that would grab the pallets right off the ship with a big crane arm that it had and set the full pallets on itself and give this ship the empty returnable pallets. It only had one track that went back and forth between the facility. The train followed the orderlies on this track system, so all the ship's staff had to do was get their ship tethered to the dock. The train drone could get right up to it and do its job, and the orderlies would untether them so they could leave with the drone when they were done. The orderlies somehow fully controlled the train drone and would tell it what to do, and it would comply. It had its own spot it went into, presumably into the warehouse receiving area, which I had never been to or had seen before. Before the people would go out and see the supply boat, they would sound a little alarm klaxon outside. This would have a Pavlov's dog effect on the harbor seals outside. The creatures had about 20 seconds to get off the concrete walkway before a lot of volts of electricity would travel through some recessed nodes that came up through the concrete. The nodes would dart up briefly and form an electric net to shock the seals' fat asses off the walkway so the fence could come up and keep them out. It only took a few times, which were very funny, until the harbor seals got off from only hearing the alarm. After that, some steel bars would come up to protect the people coming in and out. The controls for that were in a control room, which is locked by a key card, etc., so you get the idea. I guess now is a good time to explain more about the seals. At some point during the collapse, when the other side took power and finalized their plans to turn the Pacific Northwest into their own perversion of paradise, some species of seals started getting sick. One of the new first acts of the new Cascade Region government was full protection of both the harbor seals and all the Pacific Northwest sea lion species, since they had some sort of flu. Harbor seals were in no way endangered. They're immeasurable in population. But I think partially because nobody knew the difference, they ended up on the list, and here we are. So apparently the flu caused them to get really sick, but almost none of them died. It only mutated them enough to where they could crossbreed. The end result could still undulate around relatively quick like harbor seals, but still walk around on all fours like sea lions. They still had powerful back flippers like harbor seals, but still had powerful front flippers like sea lions, making them unparalleled swimmers. They all got healthy again, stronger than before, and then they had a breeding frenzy. After a few generations had eaten all the fish in the Pacific Northwest, since nobody was allowed to do anything about these new mutant seals, and now the fish were gone, so some of the seal mutants migrated away, but these ones stayed and adapted to a new diet. While I watched the ship unload and the seal mutants arf and erp at the people, the usual empty pallets were moved out. Once that happened, the new pallets of goods moved in, and it looked like no new people today would come in to enter the system. I guess that's good. And with that, Double XL started to stir into his usual unconscious torment, and I got down from my position next to his mat waiting for it to speak to me so I could answer back with the right song. In the corner, a camera focused on the event taking place, recording the interaction between us that was about to happen. Chapter 6, Secret Communications, Day 1. I tried to make sure Double XL got a little bit of sleep until it would no longer be possible. The terrors had subsided for a little while, but came back and were causing his body to tremor, and he was starting to yell and flail. I grabbed his right hand with my right hand, elbows down, and squeezed it about half strength. This was basically the universal life sign for "I'm here," squeeze back. He squeezed back, and it immediately jolted him out of the hell. With that, we both let go and wiped our hands off on our clothes. I went back to my mat and sat down. He didn't need to thank me, but I could tell he was thankful and said, Yeah, man. I nodded back to him. Nothing more needed to be said.